Welcome back, grapplers. You drill like a black belt, you roll like a black belt, but do you sleep like one? Today we're breaking down how better sleep leads to sharper technique, faster recovery, and fewer injuries on and off the mats. I'm joined by BJJ performance expert Professor Brian Rafat, who's helping grapplers at every level upgrade their training by dialing in their rest. Let's talk about your next breakthrough might actually start with simply going to bed on time. This is Sleep Like a Black Belt, optimizing recovery for peak BJJ performance. Let's roll. Quick reminder to the audience that we're now streaming on Spotify. So if you're in the car, instead of loading up the YouTube, now you can go on Spotify and listen to our podcasts on anytime you want. So enjoy that. Professor Rafat, thank you for coming back and joining us. Listen, we had an amazing podcast that if you haven't listened to, you should go to the Silver Grappler YouTube homepage and check it out, optimizing your performance as a master athlete. Out of that podcast, I just got a ton of requests to dig in on sleeping. It seems like everyone has identified sleeping as very important and a challenge, and the people have asked for it. So today we're going to talk about optimizing your rest and sleep and recovery. So before we get into that, let's remind the folks a bit about your background and your training, and you know what you're doing with your students and some of your customers that you're helping out.
All right. So background, I've been training since 2008 in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm a black belt now under Cicero Costa, Fernando Zulik. I'm still competing. And in terms of career, I've been a personal trainer for longer than I can remember. Self-employed. I've now got into holistic nutrition, and along the years, I've been able to bridge the two, and to really figure out how to optimize for performance, whether that would be in terms of fitness, level of fitness, or optimize for performance in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or in any other sport, for that matter, because it all ties into the same thing.
Brian, what first made you realize that sleep was a game changer as it relates to performance and more importantly, recovery?
Old age. So basically, and without like really joking about it, the thing that made me realize about sleep itself and its powerful effects is that when I actually started to commit to it years back, I started noticing that, what do you know? I'm not getting as injured as I was, and I had more energy and more motivation, and I was able to apply everything. But again, sleeping is obviously it's become more mainstream now. People realize the importance of consistent and better sleep, but it's not as easy as that. It's obviously more complex this day and age. But when done correctly, I feel like it's the most important predictor of your success in any type of performance-based event or any modality, anything, whether it be a career, whether it be
Sure.
a sport. It's super important.
You know, what's interesting in the jiu-jitsu world, people talk mostly about drilling and lifting, you know, to optimize performance. There's so many videos on the topic, but you don't see much about sleep. But why do you think it's overlooked in combat sports specifically?
Yeah, in combat sports, within like amateurs or you
Any
like
any level. Oh, I'm assuming the pros have cracked that code as far as sleep is concerned, as they're
most.
they're they're optimized athletes, right? But it's not something people talk about a lot in the gyms.
Yeah, because again, even though it's now become more mainstream and we're kind of getting it intuitively, it's still hard to grasp a very simple concept is that, the only time that you're recovering, repairing is during sleep.
Right.
So if you are always on the mindset of like push, 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 and that's very old school, then you are actually going to cause too much breakdown without the recovery aspect. So, and then like I said, it's more complex. Like this day and age, and with society and the way we are kind of like driven, especially in North America, to be biased towards go overachievement, nonstop work. It leaves much less time to actually apply that sleep. So the connection is just hard to bridge when you're looking at something where it's all about pushing and going hard and training hard, and then the importance of like sleeping. It still has this thing about it that it's more about like it's not you're soft if you want to sleep, right?
Right. Well, let's get into it. And now we'll talk about why sleep matters specifically to jiu-jitsu practitioners and grapplers in general. This applies to all martial arts, but we're kind of focused on BJJ, wrestling, and judo, catch wrestling, any grappling art for that matter. In terms of physical recovery, what specifically happens during sleep that benefits grapplers?
Okay. So in regards to recovery, as I already kind of mentioned, the only time that your body's repairing is during sleep, primarily the first phase of sleep, first half of the night. I'm going to throw out a term, protein synthesis. That means your body's ability to use protein and repair the cell and the damaged tissues. That occurs only as soon as we shut our eyes and we slowly get into the deeper stages of sleep, primarily slow wave sleep. That's when we are releasing growth hormone. Downstream of that, we're releasing something called IGF-1, and it's traveling down the body, and then it's causing the DNA of every cell to kind of like initiate that repairing process. And that
So,
repairing process happens only if we're relaxed enough to get into that deep state of sleep.
everything you talked about, and here's my ignorance. I've heard the term REM sleep or deep sleep. So, are all these things happening? Do I have to reach that deep sleep state to hit everything that you said, or does it start as soon as I fall asleep?
Uh, I don't want to butcher it, right? But
Yeah,
we
yeah, yeah.
go sleep stages, right? So first is sort of like we're in that kind of like drowsy state, and then we get into a lighter stage of sleep, but then we eventually get into the restorative sleeps, which
Yes.
is the slow wave deep and REM, right? But we sort of kind of go in and out. And
Okay.
then within a 90-minute cycle, we sort of go through all the stages, and then we wake up temporarily, and then we go through that next cycle of 90 minutes. And then, but for the first half of the night, you're getting more of your deep sleep, and the second half of your night, you're getting more of the REM sleep. Both REM and deep are important in terms of restoration and recovery. However, deep sleep is more like it's involved with more of your body and your brain restoring, flushing out the toxins from your brain, repairing the damaged tissue, your organs, everything. And then REM sleep is more about memory, cognition, reaction time. So there's a bit of a crossover between REM and deep, but overall it's supposed to be, this is like the numbers, like the percentages. You want 20% of your restorative sleep to be in REM and 20% in deep.
Okay. That kind of led into my next question is, can sleep directly affect your reaction time, your timing during your rolls, and your actual decision making when you're on the mats?
Okay, so reaction time, it's I think it's more with REM, during REM sleep,
Okay.
right? Decision making, absolutely, because if your brain isn't restored, then your autonomic nervous system isn't balanced. I talked about this in the last episode. But if I'm not relaxed enough and that there's somewhat of a stress response, and for example, there's many ways to be under sympathetic tone and stress, but one of them is having less sleep. So if I need 7 hours of sleep, I got 5 hours, I'm going to wake up and there's dysregulation in the brain and neurotransmitters. Nothing is restored. So I'm already sympathetically or stressed out, physiologically stressed out. Decision making can only occur by using the prefrontal cortex, the thinking part of the brain, where it's able to kind of like make decision making, right? But if you are and there's a stress response, you're more in a reactive state. So when you're in a reactive state, you're kind of running off the subconscious programming, which
Right.
has a place. But that's how am I going to make changes and start new habits, new inputs if I'm in a reactive state? So all of those ties into whether you're getting restored sleep or not.
That's great. What's your thoughts on amount of sleep? Like I'm assuming quality over quantity, or is that a misnomer?
No, no, there's definitely quality over quantity, but and there's individuality. So
Got it.
that person might, it's usually the exception. Most people need more sleep, especially since, like, let's just target grapplers. You cannot tell me that somebody who's training 4 or 5 times a week does not need at least eight hours of sleep, right? Now
Right.
there are just special cases where, they can they can work off less sleep, but that doesn't usually happen. Most of the time you need about at least 8 hours of sleep, right? Why? For the exact same reason that we just described, right? The brain does not recover, the body does not recover, and if I want to consistently be able to cause this adaptation and then learn still skill acquisition, remember what I'm learning, and then keep improving over time. I need that consistency in my sleep.
So we're probably gonna jump ahead on this question, but I have to ask because I'm thinking of myself, right? So we're gonna talk about problems and challenges with sleeping, but if you get a limited amount of sleep in the evening, will a quality nap compensate for that lost time that you may have had in the evening?
That's a very good question. So, generally, that all depends, right?
Right.
Like, so I guess we're jumping ahead, but when
We're
we're
jumping
here,
ahead, but this is for me, so it's my podcast.
no, 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 like, so two different scenarios, right?
Yeah.
Um, I'm training in the morning, you're training at night, right?
Yes.
What time? What time do you train?
Sometimes from 6 to 9, or 7 to 9:30 ish.
You're going pretty late,
Yeah,
right?
and I'm teaching as well, right? So that I'm including the teaching time.
It's not going to be better for everybody, but if you have a longer day because you're going and training at night and you need your energy in the second half of the day, whether we like it or not, there's a bit of a dip in energy.
Right.
So a nap is beneficial, but what's the word?
I should make sure I load up in the evening. Is
No, no, so the condition is you gotta have your nap before 2 o'clock, okay? Because
Oh,
yeah, it's better to have your nap before 2 o'clock because if you have it later in the day, you're taking away from your actual ability to sleep at night. All
got
right.
it.
So, and then to be safe, I would say like maybe a 20, 30 minute nap over a full like 90-minute nap. Because
I
what
agree with
happens?
that. I do feel optimized if I can get between 20 and 40 minutes, and sort of the magic number is 30 minutes. And I find if I don't set that alarm and I get over an hour, I'm
Yeah.
groggy the rest of the day. It throws me off. And you nailed it without me even realizing it. I'm not. I
The reason being is like, for example, as we get older, and we're talking about older grapplers, right? So as we get older, the ability to sleep it's hindered. It's a little bit more difficult for us to sleep. That's why over time we accept that, oh, or we think we're sleeping less is just the way to go about it. However, it's just because the ability to sleep is a little bit more difficult. But if you have a nap a little bit later and you're having a full 90-minute cycle, when you wake up, you're groggy, but you're also taking away from the ability of you to actually get a full night's rest.
right.
It's, it's just taking away from the actual sleep, right? So that's why 20 or 30 minutes is more preferred.
So have you seen in terms of injury risk and sleep deprivation, or what have you seen as far as injury risk is concerned if you're not getting enough sleep? Have you seen sort of evidence of that?
Absolutely. So this is something that is seen in the research. They've done a lot of studies now on
Right.
uh, exercise physiology, the powerful effects of sleep, and when you're not getting it. But just if you keep it simple, if you think about the body, right? If you haven't recovered, then levels of inflammation are already up. And then if any way you want to think of it, if the electrolyte balance is off because your kidneys aren't working correctly, now your muscles are extra tight, right? So going into a training session and even the warm-up's not working for you, your body's not moving the way it normally moves. Reaction time is off. So maybe that's just based on like maybe your injury happened because your timing was just a little bit off. Um, your decision making, your ability to recognize that, hey, I need to go a little bit lighter because I'm more tired. Every way you think about it, it's going to affect what you do in our three-dimensional world in the daytime, right? Like how you move, how you breathe. Your breathing, that stress response is even affecting your breath, the levels
Wow.
of anxiety, things like that will always manifest into some sort of injury, any way you look at it, right?
Perfect. And I'll give my view because I've already learned so much, and we're about 15 minutes into the podcast. What's something about sleep and athletic performance that most grapplers would be shocked about? The one the one thing that I kind of picked up is the length of naps. That kind of surprised me. I just assumed longer might be better, although my feelings tell me otherwise. The breathing, you kind of hit a note that I just recently did a video on breathing in jiu-jitsu, specifically breathing while you're sparring and breathing while you're drilling, and the importance of breathing in general, and sleep can affect, or lack thereof can affect your breathing, and that's crucial. What is there something else that you think would surprise people about the importance of sleep?
Like if you even think about a plateau, if you were to be more regular and consistent and get the sleep that you want, that you need, you wouldn't even feel frustrated and feel like you're plateauing because that even ties to your development and skill at,
Right.
right? So, I mean, that's
Do you hear that, people? All you guys that are always asking me about plateauing and what to do about it, sleep. That's a good
yeah.
one. That's a
It's
good
really
one.
powerful, honest to God, right? Like that's the most powerful ergogenic aid that one can take. We're all willing to do all these modalities for recovery and things like that, but if you're still missing an hour to 2 hours of sleep per night, you're accumulating a debt. That's obviously going to translate in less performance. So it's one of those simple things that it's just because it's simple doesn't mean it's easy, right? Like we just don't apply.
Exactly. So let's get into another set of topics. The sleep struggles of grapplers specifically. So, what are the most common sleep mistakes that BJJ athletes have come to you with, whether they're hobbyists or competitors, right? Like again, you're getting both. You're working with athletes that are just doing jiu-jitsu as a hobby, and you're also getting some high performance athletes that you're working with. What's the most common mistakes that they're making?
Okay, one is like uh, uh, after a while you adapt, right? It's called homeostasis, right? You adapt to whatever, whether it's a negative or a positive, right? So you have someone that's been sleeping 5 hours a night, and then maybe the previous night they slept for 5 hours, and then they're training super hard or they're taking a comp class that next day. I think that's just the wrong approach, right? Because what are you trying to accomplish by increasing the intensity when you're training? Adaptation. right? Improvement.
Right.
And when you're like, or maybe the case would be normally you sleep like 7 hours, but one night you get 4 hours of sleep, but you still show up to class, right? I disagree with that, even though I'm always kind of like busting my students' balls to show up to class,
Yeah.
right?
You and me
Sometimes
both.
if I knew that they were up till 12 o'clock and then they have to make a 6 a.m. class, I don't think that's such a smart idea, right? Because at the end of the day, that's what you're trying to do is you're trying to improve. And sometimes we assume that we're going to be okay, even though nothing happens in that moment in time. But that day by day will lead into frustration. It'll lead to just not growing and being able to and falling into a plateau,
Okay, great.
right?
Um,
That's one. I guess you asked about two scenarios or one.
no, that's a general one, right? And what I'm hearing sometimes, we have no choice,
Yeah,
but you need to recognize it and adjust your pace accordingly if you don't
yeah,
have a choice, right? And understanding your own sleeping habits is key from a high performer perspective or the competitive athlete even more so. And later in the podcast we'll talk specifically about those type of athletes.
right, right, okay.
So again, I think we kind of touched on it already, but I'll ask the question specifically. Why is it so hard to sleep after an evening training session? And what what can I do? And we'll use me as an example where sometimes I don't get out of the gym till 9:30, last roll 9:15 ish, and I'm having trouble sleeping because the most common thing that the feedback that I get is I'm wired and I can't get to sleep till
Yeah,
12 or 1 o'clock in the morning. Uh, you know, what are some of my options in that scenario?
okay. So whether we like it or not, our bodies we have clock genes. We are synced with the sun. So the light dark cycle. And that doesn't matter if you wake up at 4:30 or if you wake up at 9, you're awake for a certain period of time, more or less it's around the same. If you
Fair enough.
divide the day in half, the signature has to be more like activity, light exposure, level of arousal, first half of the day, and down regulation for the second half. Okay? So if you take the last even 4 or 5 hours before you go to bed, whatever that time is for you, anything that causes your heart rate to elevate and stress hormones to release, like cortisol, like adrenaline, any of these things is going to make it harder for you to get into that parasympathetic state where now your autonomic nervous system is getting prepared for sleep. Sleep is very much a parasympathetic activity. But if I'm training, for example, if you train up till 9 o'clock, right? The amount of adrenaline it takes hours to just come down, right? I realized this last week because I did a hard training session in the morning, and it was a great session, right? And then I was fine, no injuries, nothing, and like 6 7 hours later, I was going to Costco, and I was like, all of a sudden, I started limping, right?
Oh,
And then I'm like, oh my God, my ankle, what's going on, right? And I was freaking out because I had to move the next day. And I'm like, this can't happen now, right? So I barely made it home. I iced my ankle. I'm like, this is my first injury after a long time, right? And then I went straight to bed, right? So actually this is an applicable story, right?
there you
Because
go.
I need my 9 hours. I went straight to bed and I woke up and I was just fine, right? And even like I already knew this, but I chat GPT'd it, and I'm like, is it possible for adrenaline to be, because like I talked about the scenario, and it was like, yeah, the adrenaline once it wears off, And then the second half of the day, now your body's tired, you're winding down, you're going to get that inflammation. And that's what happened. The ankle was inflamed. So the same thing applies when you're training. You're just too wired to downregulate, whether you like it or not. Now, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do your breath work. Breath work is so beneficial and powerful, especially for downregulation after training.
What do you mean by breath work? Can you give us some examples of that?
So
I'm intrigued by that. It's not even on my list here. So tell us a bit about that breath work. What
breath
is it?
work, breath work is the only way we can control our autonomic state, right? So if you think about a race car that's been going and going and going, right? It needs to stop, it needs to tune up, and needs to cool down the engine before it goes out again, right? Throughout the day, we used to have that. The way we evolved, we weren't always going like we are now, because just like it just everything was different. We evolved differently. We would be relaxed, we'd be walking the desert or wherever, and then something climatic would happen. We'd do it, we'd exert ourselves, and then we'd relax again. But right now, everything emotional, non-emotional is all pushing us through the sympathetic tone, right? So if let's say you're training, you train really hard, right? But then you got to go to your family, so you go straight to your family, and then you got to go to work, and then there's really no breaks, and we've adapted to that, right? So now breath work is what's going to allow you, and it's not a switch. So what you want to do is if you want to balance your nervous system from being sympathetically dominant, stressed, why is it important for you to down regulate and be back, bring that dial back down? Because even if I want to recover and have my protein shake or food and digest, if I'm stressed, I'm not digesting anything. So breath work is down regulation. So after training, doing 3, 5, 10 minutes of breath work, whether you'd be doing box breathing or something, or just slowing down your breath, nasal breathing, learning to nasal breathe. The slower you breathe, the more you connect with your parasympathetic dial, you turn it up, and now you're more relaxed. If you don't have these little periods throughout the day that you're not doing breath work, by the time you are like at nighttime, whether you're like it or not, you are overstressed. So
Wow. Okay.
breath work at nighttime is very beneficial for someone who has been training. I would just do it a little bit longer. So like where you would normally can get away with 3 minutes, if at nighttime after you train, you get home, you make time to do like 10 minutes of box breathing, it's going to have a powerful effect in helping you down regulate so that you can kind of slowly kind of turn it down and go lower and lower and lower into more of a relaxed state and then sleep. That's one of the things that you could do, and I would encourage everybody to do that after every training session and in between, like before a stressful meeting, after you eat, because again, when you eat, your heart rate's elevated, you're digesting. You also need to be relaxed to digest food. Uh, and since we're never getting it, I would encourage the grappler to get into the habit of the more breath work they do, the better. Any
Completely
technique.
agree.
There's so many techniques that you can use, right? I use the one called resonance breathing. It's where you get a slow inhale, but even a slower exhale. And then what you're doing there is just, again, you are sending a message from the brain to the heart to slow down. And when it slows down, your body starts to get more parasympathetic. And then now you're rest and digest. You're absorbing nutrients better. You're cool down the engine. And the more you do that, the better your recovery is going to be the next day.
Perfect. Let's get into the next section of the conversation, and again, we're kind of repeating some of this stuff, but it's worth it given the context of certain questions. Optimizing sleep for performance. If a grappler could only do 3 things to improve their sleep starting tonight, what would you recommend?
Be consistent with whatever amount of sleep that you're getting. Now, this applies to everybody, not just grapplers, but for example, if I just like your body needs like we need regularity. Okay? So that means that this is the common mistake you see is that Sometimes you'll see somebody sleeping like they just run themselves down every night and then they're like, oh, I'm so tired. So they get 10 hours of sleep. When you get 10 hours of sleep, um, you are now blunting the ability to go to sleep at the same time the subsequent night because it just doesn't, we need consistency in sleep. So for example,
Humans are creatures of routine, right? And you and I have talked about the importance of routine in our training. And sleep is just an extension of our training, right? Recovery is probably the most important part of training.
yeah, and it's because our biology works off cues, right? And so if there that consistency isn't there, if I'm not going to bed and getting up at the same, like after a while, your body adapts to that, and now you're getting the cues, and now you're going to bed, and now you're going to restore better. But when you don't sleep 9, 10 hours one night, then the next night you've already banked too much sleep, and whether you want to sleep it doesn't matter. Even if you want to sleep another 10 hours, you're going to stay up that night because you got too much sleep one night.
Right.
Because whether you like it or not, your body adapts to a certain amount of sleep. So let's say I would rather do that wishy-washy one night, 7 hours, one night, 5 hours, one night, 9 hours. I would just figure out what makes sense for me. And then if that's only committing to 6 hours, you're better off getting 6 hours every night versus 10 hours one night and 4 hours one night. And so being regular with your sleep is super
So
important
give us
for
a couple more, and maybe I'll add and we'll dig into it. You've talked about coming up with a sleep routine, and breathing is part of that. What else would encompass a sleep routine?
um again, so it would fall under the same thing because it's all recovery, but um
Again, you
light
talked about breathing.
chrononutrition, so circadian rhythm, right? But with um, the effects of food, right? So, for example, if I'm going to bed, if I'm training, and we're going to talk about the grappler, right? So, if you're training at night, and one thing that affects our sleep, doesn't matter what you do, is stable blood sugar. So what you eat on the second half of the day really, really matters. Because, like, for example, if you train at night and you come home and now you're super hungry and you especially have more carbohydrates or refined carbohydrates, that's going to spike your blood sugar and then it's going to drop it. When it drops it, it's going to be in the middle of your sleep. And then one of the reasons why you wake up is low blood sugar. Okay? So timing your meals accordingly based on your sleep schedule and what you do throughout the day really, really matters too. So that's something I would say is something
So
that you want.
what I didn't catch there, and I get what you're saying, but should I be eating? If not, you know, or what should I be eating, or how much time do I need to eat before I go to sleep? Are those all
Use
factors?
an example. Like, let's
Yeah,
use the next example so that we can kind of like work on how to strategize for that person. Like we're talking about the night person.
yeah. I'm
Yeah.
talking about me, to be honest with you, which is the majority of the practitioners out there. And I'm not sure. Sometimes I'm snacking before I go to sleep, but if I'm training for a tournament, my meals are very regimented, and I'll probably have a bit of protein when I get home from practice, and that's about it. But is there a time frame? Like, I shouldn't be chugging a glass of milk and eating a steak 10 minutes before I want to go to bed. Like, what should I what how much time do I need to before I eat and go to sleep?
Right. So digestion is competing with sleep.
Right.
That's the reality.
In a nutshell. Yeah.
And you remember anything that causes your heart rate to elevate is going to cause a stress response, right? So when you're digesting, your body's actually exercising, but you're allocating blood to your digestive system, you're actually working. So it depends what you eat, okay? The other thing too is your brain is always looking for nutrients. So if you've been kind of starving yourself all day, and now eating at night because you have no choice, you have to get it in. That's where the problem is. The timing is really important. So to be specific in your situation, let's say, like what I said back in the first episode, you want to front load your day with the meals. Why? Your blood sugar control is better during the day because you have more energy. Your blood sugar is going to be more stable. You can tolerate and digest better. Plus, when you eat for the first half of the day, you get those meals in, then you're not going to have to worry about your brain is getting what it needs. Now you have the ability to just kind of keep it light at nighttime. So
Okay.
this is my suggestion is, right? So you're training at 6 o'clock. I would say get your last heaviest, more heartiest meal in about 3 hours before that, 2.5 hours. Get it in, okay? You know you're going to train, so you got to give yourself some time to digest. This takes a little bit of discipline, but the problem is once you train hard at night, when you come home, now you're more hungry. The harder you train, the more
Start.
hungry you are. What you got to do is you got to adapt. So it's better to come home and then end it. One thing that's been studied and been seen that one thing isn't detrimental to sleep is for you to get a bolus of protein powder, like at 40 grams. The reason why it's a good idea is because it doesn't require that much digestion. And because of that training bout, you need that much protein for recovery. So it actually is going to immediately send a message to your brain that there's protein on hand, there's macronutrients, there's fuel on hand. I am okay. I can down regulate and I can get into that protein synthesis and recovery state. Growth hormone can get released and it's actually quite vital as opposed to you trying to like tough it out and not eating. So it's sort of like in a little bit of an exception. You kind of want to get that in, but you don't
Perfect.
want to have a full meal. If you have a full
Right.
meal, now you have to release digestive enzymes, and now your stomach acid is going up, and it that really conflicts with going parasympathetic and sleep because now you're
It's funny. It's funny talking to you in the previous episode and this episode. I see all my bad habits when I'm just training day to day and how, whether accidentally or on purpose, how I'm truly optimized when I'm preparing for tournaments. And having that protein shake is really that what I do when I'm preparing for a tournament. But when I'm not, I'm just like, oh, I'm home. I'm going to eat whatever I want. And I take the recovery for granted because I'm not paying attention. I'm not trying to optimize, but the recommendation is actually we should always be optimizing because that's what's going to excel us and make our training that much better and increase our performance on the day to day. And that's really where all the gains are, right? Not just preparing for tournaments.
Exactly, right? So we're talking everything is a choice, and you know what? Sometimes you got life is life. You got to live your life, and it's not black and white. But if we are talking about optimization, if you bring it right back to your mindset and your purpose, and you get more specific with what it is that you want, then these are the things that are overlooked. And then we're looking for other solutions, but there's no other solution if these things are missing. It's a hierarchy of values that you need to respect if you want to get to a certain level or point. And however, like the more specific you are with what you want, then you can keep yourself more accountable with the things that you need to do. That's what it all comes back to, right?
Perfect. Here's a question I've gotten in the past, and actually I have no clue how to answer this. What are your thoughts on supplements like melatonin, magnesium, or glycine for sleep? Do you recommend? Have you looked into it? I do the magnesium anyway. Again, we talked about it in the last podcast for for my personal health and some other supplements that I take. But are there any that we should consider from a sleeping purpose perspective?
I mean, I would be a hypocrite if I said no. I'm sort of like
Are
addicted.
you like Joe Rogan, where you're just like your handfuls
Yeah,
of supplements?
Joe Rogan 1.0, I think he's figured it out now. Anyone who is like just kind of figured it out now, they're like taking less, not more. Even Brian Johnson, if you know who Brian Johnson is, he's like someone who takes like he used to take like 200 pills a day and stuff like that, right? But I said this last time too. It's like better living through chemistry still requires better living. So those fundamentals in nutrition is number one. Okay, it's number one. But in regards to sleep, absolutely, the ones that you mentioned are very beneficial. Magnesium has 600 rules. One of them is muscle relaxation. One of them is upregulation of a neurotransmitter called GABA, which is the inhibitory to excitement. So just on those two things, our muscles need to be relaxed when we're sleeping. It even helps with blood sugar regulation. So our blood sugar needs to be down, insulin needs to be down, and then for that to happen, we need magnesium, right? And most of us are deficient in magnesium, so that's a huge one. Glycine is an amino acid that our body synthesizes for collagen production. Magnesium glycinate is chelated to glycine, and glycine has a very powerful effect for sleep because it helps with our core temperature. It's also seen these days for as a longevity nutrient because it helps with inflammation as well. So anything that helps with inflammation is also going to help with sleep. So I would recommend something more natural like tart cherry extract. I'm sure you've heard of tart cherry juice being utilized now. Oh, tart cherry juice is again natural. It's a very polyphenol, antioxidant-rich compound in the tart cherries, and it's really because it has two things that are natural. It's antioxidants that are gonna bring down oxidative stress that
Right.
we incur throughout the day, which causes that fogginess between the brain and the body. So if we want to go parasympathetic, we can't have that static happening in the body. And then melatonin. That's what tart cherry is rich in melatonin. Naturally, is we're going to get that. And then when there's less inflammation, our gut, so gut health is super important in terms of the grand scheme of things, because when the gut-brain axis is working well, digestion is working well, then that levels of inflammation are coming down because our bodies are getting what it needs. Energy is being released through digestion. There's less inflammation than needs to be. And then as a result, then we can get into that relaxed state. GABA can be upregulated and then we can sleep. So magnesium helps. Tart cherry juice is helping. Glycine is a powerful aid and supplement to take. And then protein, because protein is the building blocks and has the byproducts and amino acids, building blocks that are going to allow your body to do what it naturally does. So all these things are important. Long story
Wow,
short.
that's a lot a lot to take in, and folks, do your research. And if you have
I slept,
any,
I slept 8.5 hours last
hey
night.
man, no, and just so it could open up a bunch of other questions. Just a reminder to folks, if you have any specific questions, don't be shy. Like, post them in the chat
Yeah.
here, in the comments section, and we'd be happy to answer them. I got a cool one here that you have a bit of information on. Do wearables like Whoop or Aura help or stress people out more in your experience? What's been your experience? Now I know you love your little tool there on your arm, but do you recommend it? Some people get stressed about it, right? And they're constantly looking at it, and they're living and looking at every decimal point on their
Yeah.
watch. What are your thoughts in general?
Just like any when people can get stressed about using social media and their phones. You have, with great power comes great responsibility. You have to kind of use these things properly, right? But again, it's a very advantageous tool because it's going to give, especially this day and age, the technology is a lot better than like 10 years ago.
Right.
Getting lots of very beneficial metrics that are going to, slowly the need for doctors for the most of the stuff that they're doing is going to be just taken out because of these gadgets. Even right now, there's so much in knowing what your respiratory rate is in the morning, right? If your respiratory rate is within a range and the lower it is, the way you're breathing, how many breaths per minute, that's indicative of your state of health. If your resting heart rate is low or lower based on your baseline, that means that day you're more primed for activity. The biggest one of them all, the HRV, is telling you how much you can tolerate stress in one day. That is a very accurate predictor, and it's not just in regards to, it's not influenced just by your sleep, it's influenced by what you eat, it's influenced by how you feel, your emotional thoughts, and the level of stress you have. It's so sensitive to everything that happens in your life that it's going to give you a better picture and of your day and how you can kind of like go about designing your day. But that doesn't mean that you should kind of like treat it as gospel and say, "Oh, I have a low recovery, so I'm not going to do anything," right? So it's just understanding how to use these tools.
It's
But I
just
would
data. It's just data.
it's data, but it's more objective data, right?
Yeah.
So the best way is to have subjective data and be more intuitive and use how you feel on a daily basis based on the actions that you've taken, and then also use the objective data to be able to kind of figure out something in between in terms of your overall kind of like decision on what state you're in, right? They both matter.
Yep.
You see what I'm saying?
Oh,
So yeah, I
absolutely.
highly recommend it. I highly recommend it. Why not? But sometimes you got to do a detox from these things, right? So if you've been really dependent on it, what I do is like every once in a while I just stop using it. You actually have a feature where it just hides your metrics. So you hide your
It still
metrics and
collects it, so you can have that historical data that you can go back to, but you're not transfixed by it. You're not fixated
no,
is the right word.
and you're not neurotic about it. You're like, okay,
Yeah.
right, like I feel good. I feel good. I slept. Why shouldn't I feel good? And like 99% of the time, there's nothing wrong with you if you
Do
just
you
slept.
do you wear it while you roll or do you take it off?
I do wear it while I roll, just because it gives you so much information in terms of.
So you just kind of tape over it? Like give some people some tips because
No,
I've
no,
had
there's a sleeve. There's a bicep sleeve that you can put the sensor in, so you can take this off, put the sensor in the sleeve, and now it's just on. And then it just kind of like it's really beneficial because it actually shows you how many calories you've burned, but more importantly, what heart rate zones you were in. Now, over time, you are going to become more efficient if you're training efficiently. So if I compare my data from 6 months ago, and within the last 6 months, if I've been getting ready for a tournament, in the last few months, I'm noticing that I'm burning less calories. My heart rate zones are a little bit lower, uh, which is telling me that I'm getting more fit, or it'll also tell me if I'm not training hard enough, right? So
Oh.
sometimes there's a little bit of a mismatch with how you feel and with the reality of how much like what heart rate zones you're in. You won't be able to know that until you actually have another objective measure. So I do wear it and it's helpful.
Very, very scientific, and I do see more and more competitors getting into that level of detail and level of metrics and level of understanding. I'm still old school. I'm hard-headed. It's more about how I feel, but using a lot of the methods that we've talked about in this podcast and previous podcasts. You don't need you don't absolutely need the technology, but if you want to take it to the next level,
Absolutely.
we have that now available to
Yeah.
us,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's cool that I didn't know about the armband. So there's probably more people at the gym that are wearing it than I realized.
Yeah. You can wear like a heart strap around your chest now, and like
Oh,
there's
geez.
so many different ones that you can use, right? So,
The
but
only
I do.
things I put on my body are the things that hold my body together, so I don't
Yeah.
so I don't break any more than I'm already broken. Okay, let's go to the next major topic. Uh, Again, whether you compete or not, I think these are very there'll be some interesting eye-opening points here. Competition prep and high stress sleep. What's your advice for grapplers who can't sleep the night before a competition or the few nights before a competition? What's your what are your thoughts on that?
Tough it out and don't drink coffee.
Don't drink coffee. Well,
Yeah.
you shouldn't be consuming caffeine the day of a tournament. I could tell you that whether it's related to sleep or not. I made the mistake one time. I was at a tournament. I don't know why I do drink a lot of energy drinks, and about 20 minutes before my first match, I chugged a Red Bull.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to have a heart attack during that match. I literally, my heart was pounding through my chest. I thought I was going to have a freaking heart attack right there on the mat. I was still in my late mid 30s when I did that, and I vowed that day to never, ever, ever, ever have caffeine the day of the tournament. The adrenaline of the experience and the tournament are enough to wake you up and get you going and excited.
Yeah, and so you're just layering more adrenaline, more cortisol with the coffee when where our bodies naturally kind of like release it anyways. I've made that mistake too before. So
You see, learn from us.
I'm surprised I didn't die that day, but I was 18
Dude.
and I didn't know any better. This is years ago. We had a rugby tournament and it was like in OFSA. And I took like 12 caffeine pills, not knowing.
Ooh.
Yeah, and then I was like shaking and I was like freaking out. So yeah, I made those kind of mistakes too, right? But um, just that's one of the things. Like if you again, don't be regular with your sleep. How you're training in that week really has to do with like, will ultimately lead you into a better sleep and less stress sleep and also it's experience over time, right? I mean, the more
Routine. Are we back to the routine word, right? So if
But the thing is, what's really important the week before is like to your best ability to properly taper or do your research in terms of how professional athletes taper and the different and what a real taper consists of, right? Like most of the times in jiu-jitsu, in my opinion, I see it's still sort of a cross between a sport and something that's traditional martial art. And the the kind of like pothole that we all fall into is overtraining on the last week. So if you taper properly, then you are addressing that residual fatigue or that overtraining kind of syndrome or overreaching that occurs on that last week, which leaves you a little bit less stressed. And then regularity, that routine, um, exposing yourself to light at night, making sure you're down regulating, breath work, all these things, if applied properly, especially during the time of the last week before competition, then you shouldn't have any issues with down regulating and sleeping. But I would say that if you still do, despite because you're a human being and you're allowed, then I would this is where I would be able to help someone with kind of like following a week before plan on how to utilize supplements that are going to help get you to that state. How you could kind of be regular with your sleep, and then things that you're going to do, like in terms of meal timing, that are going to really, really dial down, especially for that week, so that you're not stressing at night before the competition day.
have you worked with athletes traveling to different time zones for competition? Any rhythm hacks or suggestions for dealing with the time changes?
Yeah, I've worked with myself all the time.
Me too.
Right? So I heard on a podcast a few years ago that professional athletes use this app called Time Shifter. Time Shifter when they're traveling through different time zones and they're competing. I applied it for myself and I swear by it. And why do I say that? Is because when I follow this app and I time shift correctly, it's a paid subscription, but it's not that expensive. I am able to go to like LA. I've never gone like to Europe and use that app, but I would highly recommend it because now you're really jet lagged. but I've been able to go the day before and compete and actually be at my best. And how do I know that? I just feel better. Of course, the Whoop will give me my recovery, which I don't check for the fighting day. I don't want to trip myself out. Um, but then
There's a tip.
yeah, and you feel great as a result. It basically what it does for you is it has like the calendar. You put in even your flight number, and then it automatically syncs your flight. So usually, depending on the time zone, but it a couple of days before, it tells you to go to sleep at a different time, right? And then so you just follow everything, and it will kind of tell you when to expose your eyes to light, when to utilize caffeine, when not to utilize caffeine, and it's everything sort of backwards, right? And because you're basically shifting to
Shifting,
the different
preparing your
time,
body.
yeah, versus our time. So it doesn't matter if I'm getting like in the past, I've tried it where before I use this app and I'm thinking I'll be good if I get 10 hours of sleep every night as long as I do that. And then once I get there, and the problem is all it takes is one bad night of rest for that to affect your performance. So even if you're sleeping really where you're banking sleep for a 1 week before, then when you go to Vegas for Master Worlds, and now you're trying to go to bed, but it's a different time here. You're messed up, and the last night, the night before the competition, you're up. You don't understand why, and you wake up in the morning, and you're going to be lagged anyways.
Right.
So the time shifter allows you to quickly shift that time within a couple of days, but you got to do the work. And like, let's say it's the opposite of getting more sleep the couple of nights before, because let's say me, I normally go to sleep at 8 o'clock, right? But for a couple of nights before I get to Vegas, I need to go to sleep at 10, and then the next night at 11, and then I gotta kind of get less and less sleep, but it kind of balances out by the time I get there. And now the last night, I'm able to shift correctly, and now I'm much better and more energized for that fight day. So I would recommend using an app because
Perfect.
it makes things easier, right?
I have some strong opinions on this next one. What role does mental rehearsal or visualization play in improving sleep quality before a tournament? What are your thoughts?
You know, visualization, like so do I, because it's everything, right? Because
Everything,
it's
everything. To
right.
me, that sorry, I'm going to inject my thoughts because
Sure.
I'm very passionate about this one, and uh, I'm almost super religious about it, and that's my own way of dealing.
Yeah.
I visualize to go to sleep. So
Yeah.
I visualize if I know I'm going to have three matches, even if I know who they are and I'll picture their face. I will replay my matches, my upcoming matches from beginning to end, always with my hand raised, and I'll replay different scenarios over and over and over again. And what that does is it occupies my mind. I'm not thinking about, oh, am I falling asleep? Oh, I'm not tired. Am I going to go to sleep? I use it whether I'm falling asleep or not. I know that's the time that I want to sleep, and the act of visualizing calms me and gets me into that nice sleep state. So when I'm able to do that, not only does it help me to prepare mentally for my fights and to reduce there's always unexpected that happens, but I've replayed so many different scenarios in my mind that I'm not really surprised during my like never really surprised during my matches, because again I've been caught in this, I've been caught in that. Okay, so I'm prepared for all my escapes. I'm that detailed in my visualization. And again, because I'm so detailed and replaying it over and over, I just end up falling. I'm dead coma, deep sleep real fast. You know that's so it's a double win for me. It gets me to sleep and it helps me in that mental preparation. And sometimes it'll help me identify areas I need to work on back at the gym.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's fantastic that you do that. It's been proven to work. It's actually been proven to even improve your performance, whether
100%.
if you visualize your technique and things like that. Of course, it's not going to be more effective than actually drilling, but it's
No.
that powerful that it has that effect. So you're getting a double whammy because you're also doing that before bed, which is kind of like it's making you giving you a sense of relief that you've done the work, you did your visualization, good. Now I can rest. And then also it's kind of like fatiguing your brain because you're thinking about it, and now it's like mental fatigue, right? So it's like you're good to go to sleep. So it's a perfect time. I agree with you. Now, whether you're doing that or you are stressed and you're just journaling about it, a couple of lines, writing it out, saying, I've done the work. I do really want this, but I know that I'm going to learn from this experience, like whatever. And then you crystallize it by putting it on paper. Whatever it is that you kind of get it off your mind and you put it down, whether you journal it or whether you visualize, all of these things are going to help because rumination is something that occurs because it's something that we none of us do these days this day, not none of us, but it's very hard to do, is to actually invest the time and say, what are my thoughts telling me, more than just thinking, right? You have to have a way to pause, create distance from your thoughts and just be like, okay, this is telling me this, and by you writing it down, then you can be able to kind of understand the narrative or
Sure.
rationalize and see what your brain is telling. And then the mindset and mind work is crucial, right?
I'm of the firm belief, I'm overly positive when I'm doing these mental exercises and I'm preparing. To me, I'm going into a match like I'm ready to fight the world champion, and I'm gonna choke him out. I know that might not be the reality, and part of it is I'm not blind to the fact that there's work to do, but it's more on the positive side is okay, what do I need to do to get there? What do I need to do and work on to again, I'm occupying my
Yeah.
mind in a positive way. I'm not going into it like, oh, I'm gonna lose, or oh, my passes are so bad, and it's I'm so weak, I'm gonna get caught on this. No, and then your stress level goes up, and then we're talking about sleep. You're not going to be able to sleep. So having that constant positive reinforcement, whether you're journaling or whether you're dreaming about it, like I am, envisioning. Man, I can't tell you how many times my hands go up in victory in my brain, and it will only be beneficial, but you still have to put the work in.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever the case may be, you got to put the
Yeah.
work in. If I can say my way of doing it is
Yeah.
maybe a little bit different, and I didn't come up with this, but it made sense to me. I'm more about like I'm positive, but as a human being, I know I can't control my emotions. So when I do, like especially during fight day, the night before I'm a little bit more relaxed, but during fight day and as I get closer and closer to the event, your mind goes to self-doubt. And then
Oh
what I,
yeah.
yeah,
We all say it, eh? Like right before you're called up and you're warming up, you're like, "What the hell am I doing here? Why am I doing this to myself?"
yeah. So exactly. And the mindset training that is involved there, where I truly believe in it, is
Yeah.
like you go there and then I allow myself to go there. It's not like it's not a negative thing if I'm like thinking about it and saying, I allow myself to feel this way. I know why, because I want this. And why is this a good thing? Is because I value it. I've trained hard for it. I want it. That at the same time will make me quickly think about, okay, you know, that this is something I need to prove to myself. And then I rehearse. I've done the work. I've done the
Done
work.
the
And I'm
work.
not the type of person to like, I'm not the type of person to like go, I'm all or nothing, right? Like, I'm not gonna not train and then have an excuse. That's okay for someone else to be like that. A lot of people, they just jump in and at the end they said, I like to fight. I'll go anytime. I don't like to go anytime. I like to
No.
put 100% so I have no excuses. So these things that are going in my head, I'm not willing against them. I'm allowing them to occur, and then I bring that positive, reinforced way of thinking back. And there's usually a few one-liners that I say right before. But I'll say one thing. I think all of these things are going to be solved by a good night's rest. And not
Way to
just a
bring it back, buddy. Way to bring it back.
Yeah, but not just a good night's
Yeah.
good night's rest. Consistent sleep over time. I don't accumulate debt over time, then whatever my brain is thinking that I can't control is gonna be more on the positive side. That's the whole thing that's the magic behind it. Commit commit to it and see what happens. That's at the end of the day, right? So
Perfect. That great way to finish that topic. Thank you. Let's do something a little bit different. I'm gonna throw six common statements, and I just want a quick reaction. And I'll throw in one. You throw in right away. Don't even think. Just respond. Okay. But these are things we've all heard. Sleep is for the weak.
you're the weak who said that.
You know what? Sleep is for the weak when you're 20 years old, right?
Yeah.
Like that's it, right? You remember when back in the day? Well, we were we grew up kind of the same way. We'd go out all night, and then wake up first thing in the morning. The older you get, that's not true. Sleep is not for the weak. Sleep is for the strong, believe it or not. Uh, if you train hard, you'll sleep hard.
If you train hard, you'll get injured hard. Without sleep.
Okay, so sleep is still important, but doesn't necessarily mean you're going to sleep better.
I thought this game is like just be really quick. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
So training hard requires adequate and just equal amount of recovery measures for you to match that, right? That's
yeah,
it.
yeah. That's it. Sorry,
Yeah.
I built on it. I thought that was important, though, right?
I,
You can catch up on sleep over the weekend.
I think it's quite the opposite because if you've accumulated a debt over time, a debt in money, right? It's silly to think you can pay it back in one weekend, right?
I
So
get
if you
less sleep on the weekend. I'm gonna be honest with you because I got all the kids stuff and all the fixing the house and all the stuff, all the activities that.
you're busier in a sense, right? Because of family and stuff. But going back to remember, you're jet lagging yourself by going to bed at a different time and waking up at a different time because that's like it's no different than going to a different time zone, right?
This
So
is the most common one, and I threw this one at you. Sorry to interrupt, Brian.
go ahead. No.
I've even said this to you, and I've taken it back, right? Because I have a better understanding and appreciate it. I only need 4 or 5 hours of sleep. I'm used to it.
Yeah.
Good luck. That's my.
Let's really kind of like figure out use more objective ways to figure out whether that's true or not. Like,
Right.
be skeptical because people say a lot of things like I eat really well, but what does that mean? So
What does that mean?
yeah, what does that mean? Let's define it. Like how is your progress? How injured do you get from time to time? All these things will kind of like relate to you only needing 4 to 5 hours of sleep, right? Yeah. I only need 4 or 5 drinks a day, and I'm totally fine. Like, what does that mean, right? You know what I mean? So,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
Exactly. Well said. Melatonin every night is safe and effective.
Uh,
I don't know the answer because I don't I don't take it.
Conflicting research on melatonin, but time and a place. As we get older, like especially someone in their from 60s and up, the pineal gland is calcified, so melatonin supplementation is beneficial, but you have to be careful with the different brands. If it's a crappier brand. They put way more than they claimed is in there, and you want
Crappy or anything. Like the older I get, the more understanding and respect I have for premium quality products like meat, like produce, like anything, like furniture, like clothes.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But melatonin, I do microdose melatonin. I take a
Okay,
little bit of melatonin every night, and I find it helps me. But yeah, you got to be careful with melatonin.
perfect. This is the one we kind of alluded to already. Younger athletes don't need to worry about sleep.
Um, yes, so that way they're sleep deprived, and then I can kick their ass.
Well said. Well said. I'm
Right?
going to go to the gym tonight. I'm going to say, kids, you don't need to sleep. You
Yeah.
just need 2 hours and then come to the gym tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah. They definitely do need to sleep, but their ability to recover, the reality is better than ours.
The
And
recovery is insane, right?
this, everything, right? Digestion ability, that is the reality.
Okay, so let's kind of thank you for the rapid fire. That was actually kind of fun. I'm going to do that again. Let's go to final thoughts and advice, closing advice. So for the average grappler who works full time, they train 3 to 4 times a week. What's the most realistic sleep advice that you would give them in conclusion and sort of summarizing everything?
Summarize summarize, focus on aligning with your circadian rhythm, okay? Find out what your sleep chronotype is because there's individuality and there's a lot of questionnaires online that are very, and I can help you with that. Just message me and work on a few options in terms of the questionnaires. Will let you know if you're a night owl or versus an early person, because then it really makes a difference in terms of when you should go to sleep and when you should, like how you should design your sleep cycle, right? That matters. Chrononutrition matters. So, understanding the difference between timing of your meals and how that affects you being able to get better sleep, and managing your stress levels through a balanced training regimen, which includes down regulation and knowing that how much, objectively speaking, your body can handle training and can recover from. These things, I would say, in a nutshell, is going to determine whether you are going to be able to sleep that amount that your body needs and deeply, or not. And the last thing is consistency, right? So if I'm in bed for 9 hours, but I'm waking up like crazy and I've tried everything else, then maybe you should try sleep restriction because if you sleep for 7 hours, maybe that's a better number for you, and you're going to start to notice after a few days, after a few nights, that you're sleeping more deeply. So you got to kind of do the work to figure out what your body needs, and you have to go towards figuring out by like trying different things. So don't give up on sleep. Understand that everything ties into sleep. So that's it.
So give me one thing or give our audience, so you gave a nice summary and there's a bit of research thing, but they want to start right away. Give them one thing that they can do this week to start down the path to improving their sleep. What would be the number one thing they should start?
Figure out what is a reasonable time for you to commit to in terms of sleep duration and the time you're going to go to bed and the time that you're going to wake up. Then go back to mindset and understand that at the end of the day, only you can keep yourself accountable, and you are somebody who that your friends can rely on. You consider yourself someone that they can trust. You will never let them down. Don't let yourself down by committing to going to bed earlier, and then that time comes around and you say, oh, something happened. And stop seeing the world as I can't control these things and I have less control because it's the circumstance, and focusing on all the things that are leaving you to not be able to do something. Shut it off, take ownership, keep yourself accountable, and say, I'm going to stop letting myself down starting tonight, and I'm going to go to bed at this time. I'm going to wake up at this time. Don't think paralysis analysis. Don't
Well said.
overanalyze on that night. Just do it. rely on delayed gratification versus instant. Follow these things for days and weeks and watch the magic happen. That's it.
That's absolutely fantastic. Thank you, Professor. So, how could people contact you directly? What's the best way for people to reach out to you? Again, you're more than welcome to leave any questions, your experience as far as sleeping is concerned. Leave it in the comments. But if people want to work with you directly, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Okay, so first of all, you can reach me on Instagram or Facebook, Brian Rafat on Instagram. There's going to be more down the pipeline in terms of seminars talking about how to optimize for the grappler, focusing a little bit more on the older athlete, but that doesn't mean that you cannot take advantage of it if you're younger. So I will keep you posted and updated on social media in terms of I plan to launch the first seminar in September. So that's sort of in the making. And just in the meantime, I would love your kind of feedback and whatever questions that you have. And I would love it if you could join the seminar. So you're going to find out more about the launch date coming soon.
Brian, I'm looking forward to that, man. I think you're going to be doing the community a huge service. And that said, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast and dropping the knowledge. So, folks, do me a favor, like the video so we can get it out there to the people. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks again, Professor.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.